A little under 8.5 hours remain of the Spa 24 hours. It is a dry and bright morning here at the circuit, and it all began under sunny skies yesterday. A 65-strong entry got underway. There were nervous people in the garages, there were nervous people on track as Alessandro Pietruini had this big spin right in front of the field, and Nick Tandy was oh so lucky to avoid him. We lost Alex Buncombe early on with a suspension problem that forced a wheel under the car. He went off with high speed into the barriers, and the Nissan out very early on in the race. That brought out the first of 3 safety car periods that we have had thus far. When the racing got back underway, though, it was all about Mercedes taking on BMW, and then we had more drama at the top of Raidillon when Jos Mentens spun the Lamborghini. With some force he hit the barrier and he was out of the race. He was okay, but the car started by Peter Cox was going no further. In the garages, drivers got ready for their turn behind the wheel. And early on, with the pace of the race, they were single-stinting drivers in most cars. Ludovic Vade had made up ground after an early spin. The Hexis McLaren had problems. It was overheating. It had had electrical dramas as well, with problems with the alternator cable connection. And while Mark van der Straten was happy with the pace of his BMWs, Howard Blank was rather less happy with his tyre. A puncture brought him into the pit lane and lost the Ferrari some time. Maxi Martin had grabbed the race lead, but when he pitted, so number 3 BMW dropped back, and Nick Katzberg, who'd done a great job in the opening stint in BMW number 4, fighting with the Aston Martin of Stefan Mucker, inherited the race lead when the Aston pitted, then made his own stop to put Marcus Pautala behind the wheel. The battle was building up nicely between the 2 BMWs, but it included as well the Mercedes 84. Maximilians Goertz and Buch, along with Ben Schneider, had made an early stop behind the safety car for a splash and dash, and therefore the car runs out of sequence against everybody else. It's competitive, and in the early stages it was in this big lead battle against the BMWs, but also Porsche, because the Lemon & Lime Manthey Racing Porsche, with Richard Lietz at the wheel being squeezed towards the grass by Frank Stippler, was in that lead group as well. And as the first few hours unwound and Patrick Pilet took over the Porsche, it became ever more of a factor, working its way through traffic, working its way into contention, battling with BMW number 4. The third VDS BMW, though, had an engine problem, and as that expired out on the circuit and Ferraris scattered in avoidance, the 3-strong BMW team was down to 2. We lost a Porsche as well. Marco Schelp was assisted out of the way by Carl Wendlinger. Wendlinger's Mercedes got a drive-through. The damage for Schelp's Porsche was too great. And then the move of the race early on came from Patrick Pilet, right round the outside, not only of the back markers, but also of the BMW of Jelmer Berman, to grab the race lead going into Les Camps. And grudgingly, even the Mark VDS Racing Team guys had to admit it was a pretty good move. Into the pits came Berman, and that allowed Pilet to continue to build up his advantage. BMW rejoined, Porsche pitted. Lieb took over, and then the question was whether he'd be able to rejoin the circuit ahead of Jelmer Berman. The answer was no, but it didn't take him long to get back onto the tail of the BMW and mount his attack for the position once again, because as the cars worked their way downhill, a lap or so later towards Pouen, Mark Lieb used the traffic to his advantage, managed to box in Jelmer Berman and dive through up the inside. Daylight turned to dusk then as the sun set and the cars worked their way into the night. Even harder for the teams to go about their business, more stress, and with the lack of sleep, even more demanding on them physically. Going into the darkness hours, points were awarded at the 6-hour mark, and the Mark VDS BMW team looking very strong indeed. Sadly though, the cars would wilt during the night. Off track, plenty of distractions to keep the non-race fan entertained. If they did look to the track, they'd see a firework display from Johnny Adam as he brought the Aston Martin into the pit lane. And the picture postcard view of Spa as the cars slogged on into the night. The pit building lights came on, the fireworks started, the concert got into full swing, and others enjoyed themselves off track. The cars raced on, but through the darkness hours, inevitably, things would start to tell. As dawn broke over Spa, there were fewer sets of headlights blasting out of the chicane, there were fewer cars circulating, there were fewer people awake. The barbecues were lit, ready for breakfast, but as dawn broke, it did so over stranded cars, one significantly. The Linders, Berman, Martin BMW out with electrical problems. An 84 Mercedes became the race leader ahead of the 150 Porsche. The battle between them took us up towards noon, but after that the Porsche started having engine problems. lost a bit of ground, lost a bit of pace. In contrast, number 44 Ferrari was making good progress. It was up at one stage into the top 3. More tyre changes for the weary crews to perform down in the pit lane. Ferrari fans well catered for in the total 24 hours of Spa. Race fans well catered for as well, as the lead traded once more. Mercedes getting ahead of Porsche on the run downhill. McLaren had a pretty ropey night. Bruno Senna was the better placed McLaren driver until he was tagged into a spin by ProSpeed's Porsche down at the bus stop. That did damage to the diffuser of the car. It was replaced, it fell off, it was replaced again, and it fell off again. Audis have been dropping out of the race during the night. No such dramas though for the surviving RJN Nissan. Its only problem was the digital display dropping down off the windscreen. Photographers had lots of action to snap away at, and it continued as Ferrari and BMW got side by side heading down towards La Source, and Cesar Ramos in the Ferrari got himself up and past the BMW in the hands of Stefano Colombo. Gulf Racing's mechanics were still trying to catch up on sleep, not helped by camera crews waking them up now and again. Out on track though, Porsche led from Mercedes. The pattern was emerging as one car pitted, the other took over the lead. And so, as in came the Manthey Racing 911 GT3R, so the 84 Mercedes took over the race lead. The way the pit stops would pan out, the Mercedes was looking the stronger car, as Andre Lotterer had the brake pads and discs changed, rejoined and promptly spun. He should have been able to get going quickly, but the car, in contrast, kangarooed its way into life before electrically it was all reset and it was able to get going again. At ProSpeed, Xavier Marson was getting ready for his next stint. The 53 Ferrari had an engine problem and dropped back, and another set of Pirellis went on to another car. Through the pit lane came the 84 Mercedes. Back ahead of it once again went the Manthey Porsche, the two continuing to trade places right the way around the race. But eventually, Bernd Schneider made his move for the race lead. He didn't wait for the Porsche to pit. He went round the outside and did something his two teammates hadn't been able to do, past the Porsche. Louis Machiels had this big accident going into Eau Rouge, a tyre going down as he turned into the corner. Louis was okay, but the car out of the race with a lot of damage. As he limped away, the safety car was deployed once more. And by being held at the end of the pit lane, so the Manthey Porsche went a lap down, and that coupled with the down on power engine and occasional loss of performance from cylinders meant that it was never able to really come back into the game. It did unlap itself, but did so before that white line you can just see marked across the road, the safety car line. You can't overtake before it, but that is what Patrick Pilet did, and they got a drive-through penalty for their pains. Enzo Ide charged Ian Dockrell off the road. A wrecked Audi, a wrecked Ferrari, and it meant that those two cars not only were out of the race, but also it brought out the safety car once again. People bunched up. Wim Mulder's Porsche was dispensed with by the JRM Nissan. That bashed its way into the tyres but was able to rejoin. Bob Neville bit his nails as he hoped that his Nissan would get to the end. Christopher Meet went round the outside of Frank Keckler to pick up fourth place, Audi ahead of BMW. Disappointed faces in the Vita 4-1 camp. They'd been more disappointed in the last hour and a half as the car ground to a halt in the pit lane. Greg Franchi watching on, but not at all happy. The car would go no further. Michael Bartels commiserated with the team, but also a smoky, indeed flammable Ferrari came in. Kessel Racing, championship leaders coming into the event, saw the car go up in flames. That was the end of the race for number 44. It gave Audi a podium finish because Andre Lotterer would bring number 2 to third place, and within the last hour, Bernd Schneider, with a full tank of fuel, hopped on board the leading Mercedes to bring it home for his second Spa 24-hour win. The mechanics could congratulate one another on jobs well done, and they started to get themselves ready for the celebrations. Out of the bus stop, up to the line, victory in the total 24 hours of Spa to Bernd Schneider, Maximilian Buch and Maximilian Goetz at the end of an impeccable performance from the drivers, from the team, from the car. Everything absolutely spot on for the HTP Motorsport team. Congratulations all round, and Bernd Schneider standing on top of the car. The drivers made their way up towards the podium, and it has been another superb race in the total 24 hours of Spa's history. From all of us at Spa, we hope you've enjoyed the coverage. Join us at the Nürburgring for the final round of the championship. For now, it's time for a Belgian beer, and goodbye.